This video had to come eventually, so today we are going to be covering the first shield hammer in Xenoblade 2. Fortunately, at the very least, Kasandra is a cute character, and that almost makes her worth using simply for that alone. But, unfortunately, she is still a shield hammer, which is easily the worst weapon class in the game, but maybe you like the slow, tanky weapon archetypes. This video is going to be for all of you out there. Kasandra might be a D-tier blade, but thankfully Xenoblade 2 allows for a lot of fun diversity in builds and combat, so you can still use her to have plenty of success, and in this video, we will be discussing how to do exactly that, plus go over all of her strengths and weaknesses. And if you enjoy this type of guide content, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, and look forward to all the future Blade guides, both good and bad, because it does help out so much. As stated before, Kasandra is the first shield hammer type weapon we're covering, technically the first being covered at least, but it could be seen as a very similar weapon to Poppy Alpha's drill shield. For one, the stats are pretty close, having the highest block rate tier in the entire game, able to reach 58% with the Dilaton chip, but it also has the lowest critical hit rate in the entire game, only maxing out at 10% with a Moon Matter core chip, which is pretty bad. Her auto attack stat is fairly mediocre as well in this weapon class, being only 1,315 with the Tachyon chip, and her defenses are 30% physical and 25% ether, making her solidly tanky as you might expect of a tank class weapon. She gives a 15% max health mod to her driver, making them additionally difficult to kill, and has an average cooldown of 4 when maxed out. From these stats, she doesn't seem like she'd be too bad, but as usual, we need to take a look at her skill tree to determine that. Kassandra's first skill is Stability. It increases damage from the front by 10% at level 1, rising up to 50% at level 5. This isn't the largest damage increase we've seen, but for a tank blade, this is pretty good. Not only will she basically always be hitting from the front if she has aggro, which you want, but even if you don't have aggro, it isn't too difficult to stand in front of the enemy to get this damage increase. That can make it pretty effective. The one weakness I'd say of this damage increase is that if you don't have aggro, you may have to stand right next to an ally, which could make you both get hit by area of effect moves, so do keep that in mind if you want to use Kasandra. All in all though, this is a nice damage increase and helps her deal more damage as a tank class blade and thus generate more aggro, which is helpful. Sure, a larger increase would be nice, but this is still a good ability. Kassandra's second skill, Fortune, will absorb 10% of critical damage as health at level 1, rising up to 30% at level 5. This is a full heal anytime you get a critical hit basically with any kind of decent damage numbers. You only need to do slightly less than 30k damage to heal for 10k, and the health cap is 9,999. That can be some pretty incredible self-healing. The accessory version of this is considered one of the best accessories in the game, and many blades will use it to have a form of healing without a dedicated healer. Kasandra gets that as a skill ability, which is incredible. This is a very, very good skill in a vacuum that a lot of blades would love to have to free up that valuable accessory slot. Unfortunately, the reason she likely has such an amazing skill is because her critical hit rate is less than 10% at pretty much all times, which actually makes the skill not that reliable in a majority of situations. There is one exception to that, which I plan to show off in this video, but for the most part, the skill is not as reliable as you would want in order to make sure you can self-sustain in any fight with no extra healing. Still, it's a nice skill to have and can be very useful in the right circumstances and can make it so Kasandra is a self-sufficient blade who doesn't have to rely on other sources of healing. Just her own luck instead, which is oddly fitting for Kasandra, so I give it a pass. Kassandra's final skill is Calamity. This skill will slightly raise aggro every second and increase all attack aggro by 10% at level 1, rising to 30% at level 5. The slightly raising aggro every second effect is a nothing effect, just a weaker version of Electra's, which is already a pathetically bad ability, but I'll discuss that more specifically in her video since the other part of the skill is actually pretty good. All of Kassandra's attack aggro is increased by 30%, which means basically all of her moves will generate 30% more aggro, which is not too bad of an effect for a tank. Sure, more damage would likely be better, but this can still be pretty helpful for letting Kasandra keep aggro as the tank she's supposed to be. When you combine this with her actually having a good damage additive and a good self-healing ability, all three of her skills are pretty decent, which is why she was easily the best shield hammer before Poppy Buster came out. Unfortunately, the traits of the weapon really hold her back from being as good as she could have been, but before that, let's take a look at her specials. Kassandra's level 1 special is Sentimental Burst. It is a single-hit, ether-based special that is slow as heck. In other words, it's pretty bad. There's almost no reason to ever use the special over another option just because it doesn't really offer anything. Sure, it has a bonus effect of generating more aggro, but that doesn't really matter since other specials can manage just fine by just doing more damage and being more useful overall. A single hit special that also happens to be really slow and has no special modifiers, and there's not much it has going for it. The damage ratio is pretty much the average as you might expect, 300 at level 1, 460 at level 5, 480 at max affinity. Don't use this special much. Kassandra's level 2 special is Hidden Emotion. This is also a single hit ether-based special, but it's also quite a bit faster, even if not mega fast, and it has some other nice properties like solid AoE, and it will increase damage to enemies targeting Kasandra by 100%. That makes this special much more valuable than her level 1, and it should probably always be used over her level 1. Being only single hit, and with her level 1 also being single hit, she's not a great blade for chain attacks as you might imagine, but that's okay because she can still be useful to you in other ways. The damage ratio for the special is also pretty average, being 400 at level 1, 560 at level 5, and 609 at max affinity. This is a good special to use for damage, and one I'd recommend if you're just trying to get some damage out. Kassandra's level 3 special is Secret Desire. This is a 7-hit physical special that actually has a pretty good damage ratio for a level 3 from a tank weapon class, being 500 at level 1, 700 at level 5, and 748 at max affinity. It's also a really slow special, unfortunately, which makes it not very good for trying to combo with fusion combos, and overall it's a bit unimpressive. The bonus effect will increase damage when her health is below 30%, but that's a weird effect to have on Cass, since she also has innate healing on her skill tree that can disable this while it's being used, so it's hard to say if it'll ever be a useful damage boost. Again, this special has no modifier or anything, and unless you're finishing a combo, I'd likely use the level 2 over this, but I'd also likely use the level 4 for a combo finisher myself. Speaking of which, Kassandra's level 4 is Melancholic Break. This is a decent level 4 as it has a damage ratio of 1100, which is one of the highest for tank class weapon blades. It even comes with a critical hit modifier of 20%, which can give you a few extra percentage points there, I guess. It also has 8 hits total, which can be nice for overdrive or something like that, and allows you to have invincibility and the ability to halt driver combos to set up fusion combos, so all around it's a pretty good special. Unfortunately, it's one of the only level 4 specials with no bonus effect, but it's still not that bad regardless, and it's not like you'll ever get that much use out of the level 3 effect either, so it's still worth using this ability over it. All around, Kassandra's specials aren't really that great, and when you consider the fact that the hammer has a really long arc cooldowns, low damage ratios, and slow animations, it's easier to see why Kasandra isn't considered that great of a blade. It's hard to keep aggro when damage is so low, and it's hard to take advantage of certain skills. Fortunately though, there are ways for Kasandra to fix some of these issues with the right support. Before that though, I'd recommend setting up Kasandra with the Tachyon core chip. Yes, you can get a higher block rate of 58% with Dilaton at the cost of some offensive stats, but I still think Tachyon gives the best mix of stats, and it does have the bonus effect of increasing aggro gain even further for arts and specials, which can help her keep aggro. Block rate won't matter much if you can't do that. For Aux cores, I'm running Affinity Max Attack since Kasandra doesn't have much in the way of additive damage totals, and this will give her a big boost of damage that will allow her to more easily keep aggro. Affinity Max Barrier is a good option for the other slot to have some damage mitigation early on, so you can't instantly lose aggro by taking damage, and it's just a good support for the entire party. Night Vision is also good against high agility foes, and Outdoor Attack Up works if you want even more damage to work with. I would personally recommend using Kasandra on Morag, and to really take advantage of Kasandra, I recommend having Fiora in the party. Fiora will increase the entire party's critical hit rate by 40% when in max affinity, and this is an additive 40%, which means Kasandra will get boosted from 7% all the way to 47%. Now all of a sudden, Fortune is a much more favorable ability, and Kassandra's crit rate is significantly better. Without Fiora, she can still be good, but this will help her out quite a bit. For accessories, I am running Divine Vambraces for a good damage boost against most dangerous foes, Crimson Headband only for the big damage boost when Fiora is active. If Fiora is not being used, do not run this. Run a different damage booster because her critical hit rate is not good enough to effectively run this and take advantage of the damage increase. And finally, a Noise Dampener to increase art damage even further with another independent multiplier here. Yes, these are all offensive, but more damage makes getting aggro easier since we already have aggro boost on core chip and the affinity chart. Tankier options for accessories aren't really required since our defenses are decent enough, and Morag has a solid max health stat, although I am running some agility mod common blades to boost that up for some extra tankiness. For pouch items, I'm just running art recharge mainly since the art cooldowns are so high for shield hammers, and we need arts up more often to keep aggro. With all that done, let's take a look at how to use Kasandra practically. First off, like I said, we're going to just see having Fiora in the party. I also recommend Tora as a pretty valuable ally because driver combos are really nice to have on Kasandra and Morag, because not only do you have a topple art, but you also have an art that does extra damage to toppled enemies, and you have an art that does extra damage to launched enemies. So what this means is that what you want to do is topple the enemy, use your topple plus art, and then use your launch plus art, and hopefully Tora will launch at a perfect time in order for you to get the bonus damage on both effects. This will allow you to do more damage to the enemy, and as such, you'll be able to keep aggro much easier. Besides that, it's just about using your specials so you can take advantage of when your arts are off cooldown and all that kind of stuff. You can see in the bottom of the screen that they do kind of have low cooldowns, and the hammer auto attack animations are also not that great. But by taking advantage of certain effects like this and using your good specials at good moments, you can still do quite a bit of damage to enemies. We just did a damage cap with the Black Abyss there, which is only the stage 2 of this blade combo, so that's pretty good. You can see that Fiora hasn't actually lost aggro this entire time, despite having Tora and Rex with Fiora. So, I guess we're doing a decent job of doing damage and keeping aggro, which is pretty nice. And, as usual, you can always use level 4 specials if you really want to block a dangerous attack. I don't think this attack would have killed Morag, but it's an area of effect, and I didn't want it to kill my allies, so we just decided to play it really safe here and use the Hyper Graviton on the break. From there, we had a small semblance of a fusion combo remaining, or so I thought, but the break actually expired. That's not a big deal, because Kasandra is so good she's going to get a damage cap here on her single hit anyway, despite this special being extremely slow. And, of course, the Tyranitar went Wind weak because I am a cheater like that, and I have Wind, Cutie Pie, and Fiora right now, so we get extra damage at the end of this here. Completely not necessary, and just kind of shows just how bad Kasandra kind of is in chain attacks, so I'm not going to show any more than that. To more effectively show off Kasandra and figure out how to patch up her other weakness of the art cooldowns and all that kind of stuff, and lower additive damage totals, we're going to be using Elma. So since Kassandra's not a great blade for chain attacks, she can actually take quite a bit of advantage of Overdrive, because this will increase our break chance with Tora and allow us to driver combo the enemy and take advantage of Mountain Crusher and Decimator a little bit better, our Topple Plus and Launch Plus arts. Plus, since we don't have to chain attack, we can just focus on increasing our damage and art recharge rate even further, so we can actually use our arts more often since they normally have really long cooldowns. Kassandra's level 4 is 8 hits, so we can get a decent amount of overdrive count by attacking Carlos with it. And one other additionally cool thing about Carlos is that when he enrages, he'll become light element and take drastically increased damage to dark element blades, so Kasandra can do even more damage. So Rex has both Elma and Fiora right now, so we'll either have the extra crit rate or we'll have Elma to be able to keep up overdrive and do a lot of damage with her that way. And thanks to all of the aggro boosting effects, all the damage we have, I'm able to keep aggro on Kasandra despite Rex having one of the highest damage blades in the game, and despite Tora having Cutie Pie, who is also an incredibly high damage blade. I decide to use Hyper Graviton pretty soon with Rex because Elma's level 3 is 16 hits, so that gives us another 80 overdrive count, which is actually really nice for just increasing our damage on this enemy even further. Technically, it cuts our damage some temporarily because of the Dark Orb just reducing some of our damage with Dark class elements, but it's still worth it to get a decent overdrive count up here. Which, of course, makes our art cooldowns much lower and allows us to basically cancel all the arts we want, and we're able to just continue doing fun combo stuff here. I'm able to heal up thanks to Fiora now active on Rex now, which is very cool. And we've still managed to keep aggro against Screw Edge and against Tora's really powerful driver combo damage and everything. So I must be doing something right if I'm able to keep aggro with a shield hammer here, so that's pretty nice. We're not taking much damage at all either, thanks to Kasandra being a pretty tanky blade, which is also additionally nice. So I used Elma's level 2 there, and I'm going to use Meteorite from Cutie Pie here, which is her level 3. And now we're going to get even more overdrive counter. We're probably around 400 now, which is very good, actually. That's a lot of additional damage and a lot of additional recharge, and we can basically break him every time we want to now. So now Carlos is enraged. You're going to see me doing a bunch of additional damage here. I also use my level 4 to block Wild Wave. That's one of the extremely dangerous attacks he has. That's probably the most dangerous. I would probably recommend trying to guard that anytime you fight Carlos, but Now that we're done with that, even though he's enraged and awakened, we can still just kind of wreck him. I just did 565,000 with a driver art there, another 308,000 with another one there, and yeah, we're doing a ton of damage to him. This is how we're going to keep aggro. So even with our shield hammer, we're able to patch up the weaknesses of low crit rate, we're able to patch up the weakness of higher art cooldowns, and we're even able to patch up the weakness of lower damage with overdrive just added to damage total, just helping us do as much damage as we possibly can here. And because of that, we're able to actually effectively use Kasandra. We're able to topple, use the topple plus art, use the launch plus art, and yeah, it actually works out pretty effectively. If you were to watch a fight like this against Immovable Air Carlos on normal mode, of challenge mode mission, and one of the harder enemies in the game, the highest level of effective enemy in the game, you would not think Kasandra was that bad of a blade, but just goes to show with the right support and right setups, you can have plenty of success no matter what you choose to use. And it's not that Kassandra's really bad, she's just kind of outclassed by a lot of different blades in this game, and despite being one of the better shield hammers, she's still a shield hammer, and there's still a lot of limitations to that weapon class. Just did 673,000 with an art, though. That's pretty good. Pretty dang good, if you do say so myself. We're at 665 overdrive count now. I think Carlos is basically just dead at this point, thanks to the enrage and the bonus damage we're doing to him. And yeah, we're just going to finish this off pretty quickly here, I think. I hope you're able to clearly see the potential of Kasandra from a fight like this. It's also worth mentioning that I was completely immune to his Doom effect because I was a Dark Blade, among other things. And Dark Blade combos are pretty good, and Kasandra can take advantage of that, so that's very nice. All in all, though, Kasandra might not be the best blade, but you can, of course, experiment with different setups, support her in a way to have plenty of success, and just do whatever you want in this game, because it's just a fantastic game where you can just do whatever. I praise the combat variety and depth in pretty much every video I make, and I'm going to do it again. I really love the fact that you can use whoever you want and have plenty of success in this game. That was a normal mode mission, of course, but it was still a challenge mode mission, and it was still a difficult enemy, and Kasandra handled it no problem. I think that's going to cover it for this video today, so I hope you all learned something from watching and are still appreciating this content. As always, if you enjoyed, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment down below how much you just love Kasandra and me, and support me any other way you can. I really do greatly appreciate all the support as usual, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.